Hi, I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies, and today I want to talk about bows blowing up by magic. In an archery shop, we often get customers who come in and say, this bow just blew up, clearly it's a warranty issue, you need to replace it. Happens at least twice a week in my store. Now, the first thing with a compound bow or even a recurve bow, once you pull the string back, you've created a whole lot of energy. The higher the poundage, the longer your draw length, the more energy you've created as you pull the bow back. Now, if you release the shot correctly and the arrow flies to the target, it's all good and you can shoot again. And hopefully you can do that for hundreds and hundreds of shots and for many, many years and not have any breakages. Now, if something goes wrong, i.e. a knock breaks, the arrow breaks, for some reason, and we can even go into the questions why they would break. The arrow breaks, the knock breaks, the knock falls off the string. Very, very common. The number of people who do not put the knock on the string correctly, very, very common. Maybe the knock is too loose for the string and the arrow is just sitting there, and when you release it, the arrow literally falls on the ground. So the first thing is, if you pull back a bow and you've created lots of energy and you let go of the string and the arrow falls on the ground, that's called a dry fire. It means that none of the energy from the bow that you've pulled back and created has gone to the arrow because it's fallen at your feet. That's a dry fire. The other type of way you can blow up a bow is basically if you pull the bow back and you apply torque. So you're gripping the bow like this and you torque the bow. And what happens then, instead of the string tracking on the cams straight out, it will jump the cam, and often the cams will bend, the string will snap. Sometimes the string won't snap and sometimes the cams won't bend. It depends on how much energy you've got in the bow, and sometimes you just might be lucky. But most times you won't be. That's called torquing the bow. Now, some of that energy will go to the arrow. So the arrow may not hit the target, or it may hit the target, but it won't hit the middle of the target, if that makes sense, because you applied torque, and some of the energy from the bow did make it to the arrow, but the bow blew up anyway. Now, these problems occur with recurve, compound, longbow, or whatever type of bow. The derailing does not occur on these bows, the lever bows, and does not occur on a recurve. However, you can get other issues where the arrows are not tuned and they are whacking into the riser and causing the arrows to snap. But again, the majority of the energy is going to the arrow, so the bow should not blow up. Now, if the bow does blow up, it's normally because the arrow falls to your feet. And so if you're shooting a compound bow with cams, if you dry fire the bow, the cams will generally bend. You'll get cracks in the cams. The strings can snap. The limbs can snap. You can get all those problems. This is an RPM. These limbs are made out of fiberglass wood. They are very, very strong. To physically break fiberglass, I don't know if you've tried to break fiberglass that way across the layers. It's near impossible. You need to use scissors, right? You can't. It's just ridiculous. Even the fiberglass in this direction is extremely strong. Now, this is a 55-pound RPM. Now, you can see this end here. Look, perfect. But look at this end here. Hopefully you can zoom up. So this end tip here, this is a solid piece of fiberglass down here. It's actually been cut by this loop. This bit's come off. Okay? And the string has actually pulled through the fiberglass and the wood. Massive amounts of energy is being used to do this damage. Now, the top end, let's have a look at this. This is the top end of the Look at that. So the fiberglass on the front here, which was retaining it all, which is a reinforcing bit of fiberglass, which you'll see on recurves, has basically been blown off. So it's been cut in two and blown off. And the string has been pulled straight down the limb here. Now this is clearly a dry fire. This is what's going to happen if you dry fire the bow. So the customer comes in the store, look, we were just shooting and we shot and this happened. Yeah. Now this bow is about a year old. So he's been shooting it happily for over a year. And then all of a sudden, one shot, this happens. Now if that happens, the one shot, it's generally you. And you're probably not going to want to hear this, but it's generally you. Because you torqued the bow, you didn't knock the arrow correctly. So the first thing I looked at was, well, how was this bow set up? How was the arrow rest set up? And where's the knocking points? The other thing that happens when you dry fire a bow, the peep sight will snap. The knocking points, see here, there's no knocking points on the string. The knocking points will often fly off because there's massive amounts of force. This force has to go somewhere. Force just doesn't disappear. It's got to be absorbed into the bow, and that's why stuff breaks. Now, he had no knocking points on the string. So I suspect what happened was he was shooting the bow with fingers. I'm guessing he would have grabbed the string. Like, his form was okay. I saw him shoot. He would have grabbed the string or not knocked the arrow. He shot the shot. The arrow landed at his feet, and then he's got a broken bow. Okay. Now, I replaced the bow because his mum said that he's got videos of him shooting when this occurred, and which I asked to see because it would have been good to see, because that way you could have identified what happened. But of course, the video didn't exist. But anyway, we fitted knocking points because that's going to stop the arrow moving up and down. So it's going to stop it sliding. But you want to make sure that it's a nice fit on the string. Because now if you pull back with 3 fingers under, the string's going to be an angle. And again, you're going to run that risk of dry firing the bow. Biter nocks have asymmetrical nocks, which are angled for people who shoot 3 fingers under. So just be careful. Just be careful when you're shooting to make sure that knock is connected to the string. The way you check is you let the bow down. So you pull the bow back, let the bow down, and see if the arrow is still on the bow. If the arrow is about to fall off, it wasn't knocked correctly. The knock's either too tight or too loose. In this case, I think it was probably the fingers touched the string and would have been pulled off by that. But it is what it is. But then the result is massive. And with compounds, we get it all the time. I've got one today for a 2016 PSE. So the bow's 6 years old, and in one shot the cam bent over to the side. Same deal with that. If the cam's bending over, that's due to a derail. A derail occurs when you torque the bow. It could have been a dry fire. So it is possible to have a derail with a dry fire, but it's more likely that it's a torque. So as he's pulling it back or as he's aiming, he's doing this. So he's changing thing. 5% torque, the bow pops and the bow will explode. So 5%, it is not a lot of torque for a bow to explode. So make sure you learn to shoot and just watch the front hand. I mention it on all my videos about hand pressure like that, all off. It's like stop, relax. That's how you should be holding the bow to stop these problems occurring. I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. Thanks for watching.